A former BC actor who shot and killed his own mother has been sentenced to life in prison.
A BC Supreme Court judge called this case disturbing, heartbreaking, and extremely tragic.
Ryan Grantham decided to kill his own mother. He claims he did it to protect her. Ryan had big plans and he didn't want to disappoint his mother. So as she played piano in their home, he shot her in the head. After filming a confession, he drove to the Prime Minister's house to kill him next. This is a tragic story about an actor who turned into a violent murderer. So let's get into it. I want to talk to you guys about an actor named Ryan Grantham. Even though he committed his crimes back in 2020, everyone's been talking about him lately because he was just convicted. Ryan has more than 30 acting credits. He's been acting ever since he was a child, and he appeared in the 2010 movie Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He's also been featured in the popular series Riverdale, which is something I used to watch. Honestly, I forgot about that show, but that was his last project before killing his mother.
Told the police he did it. To protect me, but it wasn't him.
Grantham had been acting since he was 6. This was his last gig, appearing on Riverdale, a series inspired by the Archie comics.
Before we get into this story, I do want to give you guys a trigger warning because I feel like a lot of people cannot understand how someone would take out their own mother, but this is the case here, and Ryan was really sick. Even though he's Canadian, we have a mental health crisis all over the world, and he fell victim to that. The psychiatrist who worked with Ryan at this point claimed that he had suffered from major depressive disorder and cannabis use disorder, which I never heard of such a thing. A lot of people claim that cannabis isn't addictive, but in some cases it can be. Some people who use marijuana will develop marijuana use disorder, meaning that they are unable to stop using the marijuana even though it's causing health and social problems in their lives, which I thought like marijuana was an outdated term, but honestly, I don't really know what's the correct lingo. But I do know that Ryan was struggling with mental health issues. And I did a lot of research on this story, and I found one clip in another video that mentioned that the judge acknowledged that he was looking up violent clips on the dark web before he committed his crimes.
According to the outlet, Justice Kathleen Kerr noted that the actor had been having mental health difficulties weeks before the murder and had been viewing violent footage on the dark web.
I mean, I've heard of children becoming influenced by violent games and those, I guess, provoking some really bad thoughts. But I guess like viewing content on the dark web is even worse because you're seeing some of those horrific scenes brought to life. And on March 31st, 2020, Ryan decided to create his own scene where he decided to shoot his 64-year-old mother named Barbara. The crime was committed in Canada outside of Vancouver, and his mother was actually playing piano in her home before she was shot by her own son.
Grantham was 21 when he shot his mother in the head as she played piano in March of 2020.
His mother had no way of defending herself. She was 64, sitting there playing piano, probably listening very closely to what she was playing, and then her 21-year-old son decided to do this.
March 31st, 2020, 64-year-old Barbara Waits was playing piano in the Squamish townhome, where he used a .22 caliber rifle and fired one fatal shot to the back of her head.
He was able to take her life with one shot to the back of her head. And he was using a rifle to do this, which isn't like a little handgun. This is a big weapon. This is exactly the type of gun that he used on his mother. So this is a gun intended for hunting. Like, it's not like, I don't know. It's just when I saw this, I was like, holy crap. It looks like, in my mind, I would imagine this is like a horror scene with such a big gun, just like the scary movies have. And then she's like innocently playing the piano. It just sounds like an absolute nightmare. But Ryan took this to the next level, which I do again want to acknowledge that he has mental health issues. So he's supposedly working on those, but he then filmed a video. Shortly after the murder, he recorded a video confessing to the crime. He took a GoPro walking around his house confessing the murder and showing his mother's body on the film. He actually covered her body with a sheet and surrounded it with lit candles and hung a rosary from the piano. So he took his mother's life and then he, I guess, tried to make it seem halfway decent by putting a sheet over and by like putting the rosary. But I'm also surprised that nobody like heard that gunshot where he lived, because it was a neighborhood with homes that are pretty close to each other. So I don't know. How long did he wait? Who knows? But a psychiatrist who worked with Ryan claims that he killed his mother so she wouldn't have to see what he was about to do, even though he ultimately did not carry out his plan.
The court heard how he had been skipping classes, and to spare his mother from his perceived failings, he contemplated killing her for months. The dark thoughts were fueled by his mental health difficulties and excessive cannabis use.
I mean, clearly this Ryan guy is sick if his rationale for taking his mother's life was to protect her from what he was about to do. And he had some big plans.
After he murdered his mom, he also planned on killing the prime minister and wasn't going to stop there.
So he had two plans. One, to take out the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and then to shoot up a school.
The next day, Grantham packed his shotgun, a rifle, and Molotov cocktails with plans to kill himself and others, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
So Ryan packed up his car with a bunch of weapons and had a full plan to go and execute the prime minister. It's not exactly clear why he was motivated to do this, but he had 3 different guns, a bunch of different weapons, ammunition, supplies for camping, and a map that had directions directly to where Justin Trudeau and his family lived. So he had a full plot that he's been spending a lot of time on. I don't really understand how he has so many weapons. I mean, I thought Canada was better about gun control, but this clearly sick 21-year-old had access to all these guns and ammunition. I mean, who knows if his parents owned it, but I mean, he had them and he was able to use them. He knew how to use them. And if his plan with Justin Trudeau did not work out, he had a plan to go and shoot up a school, which is really hard to hear right now because we see so many of these shootings. So to think that this guy had a plan to do this. It also turns out that there were 2 schools that he considered going to and attacking, but then he told authorities that he just decided to change his mind. He had all of the weapons ready to go in his car, but something shifted and he decided to drive to the police and admit to taking his mother's life. But he definitely had some issues with the prime minister, which I was trying to figure out, like, what's the issue? Like, why did he want to take his life? I couldn't find any details, but I did find a mention that he actually wrote about killing Justin Trudeau in his journal. So he sat there in his room and took his time to write about this. So he really cared about trying to kill the prime minister. Ultimately, Ryan was placed into jail on April 1st, 2020, and he's been there since. He has 2 psychiatrists that work with him because he's clearly mentally ill. So he actually sat in jail for about 2 years while they figured out his trial, and the judge said that this was a tragic and heartbreaking case. She also recounted some of the horrific details of Barbara's murder. I mean, think about it. She was playing piano, minding her own business, and her own child that she brought into the world did this to her. Ryan was prosecuted in Canada because that's where this all went down, and he was sentenced to life in prison after he pled guilty. In Canada, a second-degree murder carries a mandatory life sentence. He could be eligible for parole after a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of 25 years. So with this sentence, the longest he could be held without parole is 25 years. At his sentencing hearing, he did have a statement statement to read. And he said, "I cannot explain or justify my actions. I have no excuse. It hurts me to think about how badly I've wasted my life. In the face of something so horrible, saying sorry seems so pointless, but from every fiber of my being, I am sorry." Which I did read through his statement, and I found it interesting how it was really focused on himself. He never really showed sympathy, empathy for his mother or his family or, his loved ones for what he did. It's really about him wasting his life, which is giving me like psychopath energy.
Ryan Grantham was given a life sentence with no chance of parole for 14 years.
So Ryan is currently 23 and he'll have to serve about 14 years until he's up for parole. He's already served 2 years, so he's got 12 more years until he can apply, which doesn't mean he will get it. He could potentially be free though. I do think it's comical that his lawyer went to the press and claimed, Ryan wasn't surprised by the sentencing, but he really doesn't want to go to jail, which you would think that he would consider prison or jail before taking his mother's life and planning to execute the prime minister and an entire school.
Kerr also revealed that Grantham is getting psychiatric treatment while in jail and appears to be showing improvement. According to CTV, Grantham's lawyer said the actor was not shocked by his sentence, but is apprehensive about going to prison, explaining, quote, "He's a fairly tiny person, and to go to the prison system, I'm sure it's a daunting and scary thought for him."
Although Ryan doesn't like the idea of prison, which who does, he is supposedly improving because he's working with these psychiatrists and they're helping him uncover his issues. And I'm sure he's not smoking pot inside of prison, so that probably helps the cannabis use disorder. It's a really sad story. It made me sad doing research for this story, and he has a sister who gave an impact statement and the rest of his family who lost Barbara. Barbara did not deserve to die this way, and there needs to be justice. So I'm glad that he is in prison and he's getting the help to become a better person, but the mental health issues do not change what he did. Here's my email if you guys have any other video ideas for me, and I'll see you guys in a new video soon. Bye guys.